This program is brought to you by the City of Fountains Coaches Association.
Some things that we deal with in our metro area as African-American coaches. Everyone on this call has been either a head coach in a high school or is currently a head coach at this time. And we all face some challenges with getting hired and getting interviews and things in our area. So we want to try to address as coaches and come together to try to figure out ways that we can keep that from continuing to happen. We've all faced the same challenges with opportunities we feel like we deserved and that we've earned based off of all of our hard work and time that we put into the game. But there still seems to be a little bit of a ceiling over whether African-American coaches are getting hired in certain demographics and areas in our community here. So we're going to go through and have everybody introduce themselves, talk about, how long you've been coaching and where you coach at currently, and what your, journey was to get there. We're going to create some dialogue and talk about experiences that all of us have had and see if we can get to the root of the issue and start putting some pressure on a lot of these places that we all throw our hat in the ring when we see a job opening, but seldom get, any calls back or interviews. And then when we go through that process, we aren't hired. So we'll start with Coach Jacob Derrit. Introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you coach and where you coached at. And, we'll just move on down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jacob Derrit. I've been in coaching high school sports, football and basketball, but primarily basketball for the last 12, 13 years. Started my coaching career at University Academy, doing football, basketball there. Made my way over to Pembroke Hill doing both sports. Spent about 7 years there, then ended up coaching with Mocan basketball for about 6 or 7 years. And from there, went over and was the lead assistant for St. Thomas Aquinas in 2016 and 2017, where my brother went to school at. Then ended up being a head coach over at Summit Christian Academy for about 3 years. And then here last year, spent time as a lead assistant at William Chrisman. I've had the opportunity to coach 60-plus scholarship athletes in that 13-year time frame, and have a couple that have playing in the NBA currently. Coach Michael Porter Jr. And a slew of names underneath that. So again, going back to William Chrisman this year, but I've had a tremendous experience that from small schools all the way up to big schools on both sides of the state line, Kansas and Missouri. Is there anything you want me to elaborate on that, Coach?
No, that's great, Coach. Coach Frankie?
All right, can y'all hear me okay? Frankie Jackson from Clinton, Missouri. I played high school there, went to North Central, played at the JUCO for a year, eventually ended up transferring to Ottawa and playing there for a year. After I graduated college, I went back and coached under Coach Mike Elliott, the late Coach Elliott.
Excuse me, Coach Frankie, could you lower your screen because your head is at the top? Yeah, there we go.
All right. Y'all can see my whole head now, right? All right. So I coached under Coach Elliott as an assistant for 2 years in Clinton. After the 2 years there, I went to Harrisonville. I was in Harrisonville as an assistant for 5 years under Coach Todd Mercer. Took a year off coaching for a little bit, landed in Hogan for 3 years roughly as an assistant there. After the Hogan reign, I left before they had actually won the Class 3 championship to go back to Harrisonville because I wanted to be close to home because I have 2 boys now that are going to be freshmen. was an assistant at Harrisonville for a year, and then finally got the opportunity to get the big whistle. So now I'm in Butler, Missouri, as the varsity head basketball coach in my second year. So as far as players, I don't have the elaborate list like you, Coach Derrit, but I do take a lot of pride in being able to offer the opportunity to further your education and to play at the next level.
Appreciate it, Coach. Coach Potts?
Yeah, so my name is Prentes Potts, kind of from the area, graduated from Shawnee Mission North. Like I was just telling Mr. Nelson, graduated in 2000, had the opportunity to play at a pretty high level collegially. I ended up coming back home after signing with Creighton University, did 2 years at KCK, and then went to Southwest Baptist University. Upon completing, I kind of came back and kind of started my coaching at KCK Community College, did some training, recruiting, stuff like that, just really, really minor just to see if it was even something that I wanted to get into. Ended up joining the military, spent 8 years in the military, got deployed to Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan. Upon my return from there, I had completed my master's degree and my certification to be a teacher, and I ended up getting into, and I'll be honest, I really didn't even want to coach. After my experiences with going to college and playing for certain coaches, I just was turned off because I realized that it was a very political game at this point. And sometimes you don't fall on the right side of the politics every time. So I was completely turned off about basketball, coaching, things like that. So I ended up just training kids because I felt like that was something that I could control and I could dictate how my career went. So somehow or way or another, I got contacted about actually it was Cody Buford at Raytown. He contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in helping him. So started helping him. Following year, I ended up getting a job up at Avila University working for Coach Perry. Then I got my first head job at Turner High School, spent the year there, 2 years at Schlegel, where I was fortunate enough to go to state twice, win league, and I believe tied for league 1 year. Then we actually even placed second in state my first year at Schlegel. So upon that, I took the job at Leavenworth, where I was there for a year. And in the process, I've managed to get certified, get another master's degree, actually certified to be an administrator, get another master's degree, and now I'm actually an assistant at Avila again. So not a nice little carousel. It's kind of brought me back, full circle back to where it kind of started. So, but for me, some of the kids I've coached, I've been fortunate enough to coach Tyon, Grant Foster, coach his little brothers. I've just recently coached Jared Hindley, who signed with UNC Greensboro. Grassroots, I've kind of been affiliated with Team KC probably the last 4 years. Derek Jackson is who kind of created it, and now it's kind of morphed into something a little bit bigger. I coach the 15Us for them and do a lot of skill development for the program as well. So that's just kind of it in a nutshell.
Appreciate you, Coach. Coach King?
Sorry about that, but I got on here late a little bit. We were just introducing ourselves. Okay, yeah, I'm Coach King, Eric King, from Winfield, Louisiana. Okay, I've been up here to Kansas City area around, 26 years. Okay, I grew up from Winfield. I grew up and went to Grambling State, but I hurt my knee my freshman year, so I finished up at Dana College. I dropped down a level, and I graduated from there, became a teacher in KCK, and a coach back in 94, 95. Was in 25 years in the school district, was at Washington High School for 15 years, where we won, I won 8 league titles at Washington High School. Then I got the job down there. I'm in Topeka High now, the big school in Topeka, 2,000 students. We're 6A school, big school, like a small college, doing really well. We won league this year, my first year. So actually I've won 2-3 league titles in a row, if you add everything up, plus the other ones. I've coached DeMarco Smith, Trayvon White, my son, DeAndre, JT Bennett, through the years at Washington. This year I had King Sutton, who was Player of the Year. You might know heard of King Sutton. He's going to Butler this year. Devontae Harden had him this year down there with me. I think he's going to Northern Iowa for football to play quarterback. He had committed to KU to play quarterback. We ended up trying to get some things right this senior year. Carlos Escobar, the Escobar boys down here. So I'm basically in my second year here at Topeka High. So we did really well. We were 16-6 this year, league champions. Like I said, Continental League champs. So I just won my 9th league title in the last 11 years. So I'm the veteran. I'm 50. So I just came from basketball practices now, workouts anyway. So it's good to see everybody though. So that's just me in a nutshell.
Appreciate you, Coach. Glasgow, currently head boys basketball coach for Lincoln Prep. Also athletic director there at Lincoln. So my coaching resume started off doing the grassroots all the way back to KC Premier when I graduated college from Avila, playing basketball there, finished up and graduated from Avila, took an internship with KC Premier and kind of started the whole MAYB model with Kristen Davis years ago. Actually, one of the first teams I ever coached as 3rd or 4th grade had Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who we all know came out of this area, who now plays at Villanova. So I got to be a part of his early development. My coaching career moved on to taking a high school job as an assistant at Lee Summit West my first year. Then I moved on to be the head assistant for Grandview as well, and then now currently where I am. Players, Jared Dixon's, and the list goes on for high school development. Mason Taylor, plenty of kids from Grandview, a lot of kids like that. So, we've all touched probably, more just in this small group. It shows how effective we are as African-American coaches and how far of a landscape, we can cover and how many kids that impact, lives in that direction. But, what we want to talk about today is really about our experiences as coaches. Like Coach King stated, he's been, he's the veteran of the group. We'll start with you, Coach, since you are the veteran. You're just now getting to couple years to a school that's that size, right? So, let's talk, what have you experienced with everything that's going on in the world right now with systematic racism? We all know that there's a part of that that falls into the sports world, right? To where we get opportunities, that's very prevalent in the coaching world and how you get jobs and opportunities and things like that. So, Coach King, we'll start with you. What has been your experience with that as far as jobs you feel like you applied for, that you didn't even get interviews for, that you're qualified for, jobs you've been turned down, etc. Talk to us about that experience briefly, and kind of let us know how your journey has went from where you started to now where you're finally getting to coach in an opportunity where, you can really, really impact and do a lot of really, really big things.
But really a lot of it, I've been very fortunate, you guys. I haven't really been turned down for any jobs. Coming out of college, I got the job at the middle school, and then I got pulled up to Washington High School. So I was there for 15 years when I just got pulled up. See what I'm saying? But I could tell you one thing I've learned, you guys got to be 2 times better. You got to be more organized. You have to be sharp. You got to be able to deal with the parents, the kids. But the biggest thing, you have to be able to show a lot of the white establishment that you're a sharp young black man, And I learned that early. My daddy always told me, being a Louisiana boy, you have to be better. You have to be 2 times better than what they do, because you're not going to get the right opportunities or the easy opportunities. See what I'm saying? Just like I tell my students, you've got to really work and show that, hey, he deserves this chance. See what I'm saying? If you don't do that, you'll never really get to move up, because we already know the coaching world is a white establishment. All the way up, it's just the white man's world, pretty much. We're breaking it down. I remember back in 1987 when I was in school, when John Thompson, John Chaney, the Black Coaches Association, when they boycotted the ACT. See what I'm saying? So we knew back then, the coaches knew back then, it's not set up for us to keep the one climbing. That's why even with football, you'll get a little 21-year-old executive for the Chiefs. Now, what 21-year-old black you know gonna walk in and get an opportunity like that? You can be 50 and don't get one. So we've got to be the ones that climb and work harder and show we're sharper, have a better attitude, shake hands the right way. Now that doesn't mean kiss ass, but you've got to be able to play the white man's game and show him that he's a black face that he doesn't have to be scared of. I think that's the best way I can put it. You got to be a black face and have a reputation that they don't have to be scared of.
But when you look at the landscape, Coach, a lot of these now we're hearing a lot of coaches that are being outspoken about the people coaching have built their livelihood off of the backs of African-American players, where they've got generational wealth. So how can we, from a veteran's perspective, the tidbit you gave us, we all, take to heart, but how can we as a younger generation of coaches develop ways to kick those barriers down to where we're the ones that are building that generational wealth for our sake? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, like you said, like Coach Mr. Nelson always says, this is the start of it, just meeting with each other. You know what I mean? And then another thing, you have to get to know those administrators. It's not enough to just talk to each other. We've got to get in positions by being the ones that be pulled up. Get to shake hands with those administrators all the time, your athletic directors. So therefore, when their jobs do come open, you can get one, and then you can pull other people up. See what I mean? So there, our numbers get bigger. And you all know, as the numbers get bigger, you get more power. You see what I'm saying? And the only way to do that is people got to get in and work hard and shake hands, be good interviews, get the job, and pull other people up with you. Because you're not going to be able to do it by yourself. See what I mean? But you got to really shake hands with those administrators and ADs so you get a chance.
Coach Derrit, I know you have a unique story. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience getting to the point you are, and some of the things that you've been through as an African American male, getting to this point, and some of the challenges that you face.
Yeah, absolutely. I played. I failed to mention earlier. I played college basketball at Rockhurst for a guy named Bill O'Connor, and got out. And the only reason why I got into coaching was really to help my brother out, who was in football. He was in second grade at the time. Coach Jennings at UA asked me to coach basketball, but I turned back to him and said, hey, let me coach football. Now, you fast forward, my brother's a scholarship athlete, full ride over at North Dakota State University. So, the plan worked out. But the whole thing was, I really was there trying to help him out, and found that a passion to helping kids, and I've led with that passion, and it's led me into the world of banking, where now I head up the business banking division for the largest bank in the country, if not the world, with JP Morgan Chase. But it's exactly what Coach was saying earlier, is that you have to be on point in everything you do. So going into coaching with just, hey, I'm just trying to fill time or whatever, it allowed me to get into banking when I made the move over to Pembroke. One of the parents owned a bank and said, hey, I like what you're doing with the kids and community. Would you want to be a commercial lender for me? And that started my banking career about 10, 11 years ago. Not to get a detour, but it goes all together. Where I've been able to exist primarily with my coaching has been in private schools. 11 out of the 13 years has been with, Pembroke Hill, Summit Christian, or St. Thomas Aquinas, then Summit Christian. And because of the notion that he's a banker, he's in the community, he's, working with high net worth individuals of privately held companies and stuff like that. Again, moving my brother out of Warrensburg, where we grew up, to go to school at Aquinas, allowed for that door to open up as well, for them to see me putting him through school, walking into every situation with a suit on, and wondering what I do during the day, but also understanding that I had my connections with Pembroke. So my path is unique in the sense that, like, I was co-signed on, you know. So I got a co-sign from one of the wealthiest dudes in the city at Pembroke, which allowed me to exist in banking, which allowed me to continue to exist in Pembroke. But even at a certain point, you get moved past that co-sign and you go into your own worth, right? So Pembroke guy says, by the name of Mark Brandmeier, you need to be coaching full time and make the connection to MoKen basketball for me. And so that was another thing that's catapulted me as one of the well-known coaches in the area, just because of sheer like volume. I remember there was a time where I coached for 120 days straight, you know, because I was an assistant for Pembroke. I also had my own little youth team with MoKen, but then also was assistant with Coach Huber all at the same time. So like I remember, you know, working for 3-4 months straight without a break from work, without a break from basketball. And those things allowed and positioned me to execute on the opportunity when it presented itself, with Aquinas, and then, you know, taking that situation at Aquinas where we had Angelo Allegri, Leland Lewis, and a few others, and we were the best team in the city. We beat Blue Valley Northwest twice, beat Bishop Mies twice that year, and I was like the defensive coordinator. So a lot of that came down to what we were scheming on defensively. I think we even had the chance to beat Hogan Prep. I don't know if you were still there or not that year, but Hogan that year went on to win a state championship. So, you know, and then I inherited a MoKen team of my own as a head coach, and we were like 28-5. Now, where my situation turns is going over and having the door open for me at Summit Christian, which, you know, Christian schools, they operate with their own set of rules. And knowing that, you know, is one thing that I was in line with, which is fine. But it was also something that can create a liability, which ultimately led me to leaving Summit Christian. But I had the opportunity to be a head coach after 9 years of being an assistant. I would say my biggest challenge of trying to get a head coaching job before that was that I wasn't a teacher, right? And that was always in play. But I did, you know, get a chance to be a head coach, and when I was a head coach, you know, we took second in conference that first year, went 15-10, had an all-state point guard. You know, put Lee Summit West to the ropes with a couple minutes, along with De La Salle out of Minnesota, who's a 5-time state champion. You know, we were doing things that we probably shouldn't be doing with the group that we had. We had a Mid-America signee and a walk-on at Grand Canyon. So the next year we tied for the conference championship with just sophomores, kids that never played varsity sports, varsity basketball before. And we're getting ready to, you know, turn the corner in this next year. You know, I not unfortunately, I had a son out of wedlock, which is kind of against, you know, their values. But you know, knowing that, I went to them in the fall and said, hey, I'm having a kid. This is what's going on. And the school, the superintendent, the principal, and the AD all signed off and said, hey, you've done a great job here. We want you to continue on. And, you know, just don't do anything else, right? And so ultimately what happened was, you know, I started trying to hold donor kids accountable, and they didn't like that. I asked the question of a kid that I was asking or trying to keep accountable. I was talking to their parents about simple things like, hey, you're a team captain. You need to be at team camp. Well, coach, he would be at team camp, but he's playing club, and this will be like 10 days straight for him playing basketball. And this kid wants to go play college basketball. I asked the guy, I said, do you think Coach Fritz is having to call and have these conversations? No. So ultimately where my demise was, I got to be too good from a minority standpoint. And from a role model standpoint of, hey, I'm going to hold your kid accountable because I don't care what his last name is. I deal with wealth all the time because it's making him better as an individual and rather work with me. They waited for this opportunity to go and eventually go to, when my son was born, to the school board and the superintendent and say, hey, my son's not coming back to the team if he's still the head coach. Now, 2 weeks before that, they let go the girls' coach as well, Gary Newsom.
Who was also African American. We have to make
African American, and we were the only two African American coaches in the school. Now, this isn't something I want to be too vocal about because, I've got things going on with, bigger things with Chase and banking and stuff like that. So, I bowed out gracefully and went on my way and had fortunate that Coach Cates, had my back and allowed me to finish out the season with him as it is his assistant over at William Chrisman. So I think, again, the rub is, it's so difficult because you do have to be 2 times better. But then when you get to be a certain level, it becomes a threat. And then when you become a threat, then they try to knock you down. And so it's kind of like, where do you find your place and what is that happy medium? Because at the end of the day, I could care less about the coaching piece of it because, I've made so much money during the banking stuff. And again, my purpose in life and what God's put me here to do is to influence youth. So although I'm not a head coach right now, I'm still being able to do that in an assistant role. And then maybe one day that'll circle back. But it is that question of what is that happy medium and where do we fit in in that, even when we're doing the right things. So Right.
I appreciate it, Coach. That's some great information. Coach Frankie, man, we know your situation. You are in a rural area, which is very rare that you see African-American coaches in those areas. Your experience is going to be unique based off of that. Just tell us a little bit about, your journey through the schools you've coached in the rural area as an African-American male and what that's been like for you.
Definitely. Well, again, going back that I played and started in Clinton. At that time, there was a lot of black young men that were coming up through the Clinton ranks that could play ball. So when I was getting out of college or just graduating college and working at Sprint, and I worked a couple of years at Sprint, I decided to go into coaching, even though I wasn't certified to coach. And I understand me not being certified to coach, certified to teach. And I know me not having that teaching certificate is going to come back again in the story at full circle. However, I went and I was an assistant in Clinton, helping out the black kids there. Clinton ended up cutting their freshman program, and Harrisonville coaching staff had picked me up with Coach Mercer and them. I was a volunteer assistant there for 4 or 5 years, even having headship at different levels, like the freshman level, and I wouldn't get a stipend there. At the time, the assistant superintendent was always on me about getting a teaching certificate to be like in a pair position, a focused facilitator position, or they weren't wanting to renew my whole contract in Harrisonville School District. Well, the board had voted against that and decided to be able to keep me on for that. After that year, I just wasn't interested in being a part anyway, so I went back to Sprint Erickson for a year. At that time, I was in Harrisonville. There was an assistant principal, black man by the name of Jason Beavers. And he had always told me, hey, once I get on, I'm going to bring you on with me. Fast forward, he ended up being the principal at Hogan Prep, I want to say 2014, 2015-ish year. So when he got on, he did exactly what he said he would do, and he offered me a teaching position at Hogan Prep. Now, the charter schools have different rules about certifications and the different slots that you're able to fill with non-certified teachers. So it happened to work out. It was the first time in definitely 5-6 years as a coach that I finally got paid to coach. Since I left Harrisonville. I believe I got a stipend while I was in Clinton, but having that whole area where I wasn't getting paid. I'm at Hogan, I'm getting paid. Very talented team for 3 years, 2 years. First 2 years I was there, ended up getting knocked out by a talented Barstow team in the district championship. They made their runs to the state. I think they pulled one off. May got second 1 year. That third year, we finally got over Barstow, and that's when we made it third in state. That following year was when I had decided I was wanting to go back to Harrisonville to be closer, to my family. They had actually offered me to be able to be paid, so I was able to finally get that stipend at Harrisonville now. But after getting that stipend at Harrisonville, I had a pretty good year as their freshman coach. And again, I was their freshman coach with all the years experience, which is fine. Just get me in the door to be able to have the opportunity. I'm there 1 year, and then the opportunity came for me to go to Butler. Once I'm on at Butler, which ties into what I believe Coach King, I forgot his name. Coach, you have to forgive me. He was talking about earlier about getting in, shaking hands with your admin, and being able to carry yourself in a non-threatening manner. This is what I've learned throughout my whole experience being into coaching, is that regardless of who you have on your team, you're going to have to treat your boys like they're one of yours and definitely be vested in them. So I find it to be interesting whenever I'm coaching there, the compliments that I can get as far as individuals who want to come up and tell you how well you coach and how you carry yourself as if they expect something different. Does that make sense?
Right, Coach. Well, here's my thing about this. Like our theme is on this call is everybody is through your network. This is how you. Why do we feel like it's okay for us to have to walk the line and have to do everything right when we know for a fact that our counterparts in this field don't have to do that?
I think
we all have impacted all of these kids, right? We've all done all of these great things with these kids, but then when we get in an environment where we feel like we have to toe the line just to be accepted or not get fired, or I can't say this, I can't move this way because this is gonna cost me my job. We have to get past the point where doing what we do so well and having this type of impact, it doesn't cost us anything to be who we are. As long as you're not harming anyone, then meeting administrators and shaking hands, we looked at as human beings. In the coaching world, you should be judged off of your merit and what your capabilities are. It shouldn't have anything to do with what we look like and why we have to do things differently. Because we all know, everybody on this call, we have to do things differently in order to maintain jobs or to get opportunities at these schools. And then even then that comes into play, we still don't get the opportunity. Several of us have applied recently, maybe at places and we were the more qualified candidate for those jobs based off of a resume. If you look at it, then some people aren't even getting calls. And then when you do an interview, you know that you have done more than this other person, and they're getting the job. There's an issue with that, and we have to address that as Black coaches and make sure that that's not the case, because we all know that doesn't happen both ways. So Coach Tyrone, I know you just jumped on, man. Introduce yourself. Kind of tell us what your thoughts on your experience and, where you coach at, and let us know what your thoughts are on that, my man. Hit that mute button for me, Coach.
What up, everybody? Coach Davis. I'm coaching at Ewing Kauffman right now. What you want me to elaborate on again, Glasgow?
Just talk about your experience, Coach. I mean, you're a Division I basketball player. You've had Division I basketball sons that have gone on to play college. But your coaching experience and getting to the level where you are to get hired at Kauffman, what was that like, and how long did it take for you to get a head coaching job? And then how did that work for you in your process?
Within my process, man, it was a very, very, very difficult process. Because I felt that with my background, with my coaching experience, and what I brought to the table, that it would have been probably a little bit easier to find a job, to get a job in this field. Just for the fact that I'm coaching one of the top freaking shoe sponsor teams.
Coach Davis, your sound, we're getting some problems with your sound.
Okay.
Are you speaking? We're getting a crack in your mic or something.
All right, I'm just gonna log into my phone here.
While Coach is logging in from the phone, let's attack that issue about what I just mentioned. Who has some feedback on that? You know what I mean? As far as why we feel like we have to walk this line to get into to keep our positions, when really, and even from a teaching certificate standpoint, isn't that a deterrent for hiring the best coaches, right? Because we all know that the science teacher or the math teacher is probably not a better basketball coach than what we feel we are. So
I want to tackle that, Coach Glass. I think it is truly a lack of representation, whether it's on the administration, whether it's on the school board, whether if it's just on a demographic or community setting. It's so political, as we all know in this profession. Everyone's trying to appease someone rather than it being the sore focus on being on the youth. Does that make sense? So I'm thinking if we had more Blacks, in a sense that our principals, ADs, et cetera, is more of the Black community that truly want to apply for a school board position, it'll be a little more of a fair shake rather than having to ask this question, because of course there's powers that are above us that is completely out of our hands, just being coaches.
Right. Prentes Potts, you said that you went on to get your administrative certifications. What's your experience been like in trying to get in those roles where you're empowered to hire and put people in place for you? Have you had any success since you received those certifications? Are you looked at a little bit differently? Because I know as an athletic director, I've been able to get in. So I probably would have never gotten in without that option. So, Coach Potts, what's your thoughts on that? Since you've become an administrative, you've gotten your certification on that. What are your thoughts on doing it like that?
So, for me personally, and just taking the basketball part out of it, I do pretty well with to get in the admin.
You see the same screen I see.
I just got an intern position at our high school just to kind of get me prepped to be an administrator in Olathe. So for me personally, I think district by district, they do things differently. When you start looking at the basketball situation, just athletics as a whole, I think a lot of times you have guys in position who are ADs or district ADs who really don't know or can't relate to the sport today or even to the kids today. So it's easy to say, oh, run a great program or run a clean program or run a respectable program. But at the end of the day, every kid that I've coached wants to go play in college. So if you're not preparing them as a coach for that next level, then you're doing them a disservice. That's just my opinion. That's how I feel. And there's a lot of situations, there's a lot of schools within the metro area where you have coaches who are science teachers, math teachers. It's an easy hire to just move this piece into that piece and it's just a stipend. I think you have very, very few coaches in the area who know enough about basketball to be actually considered good coaches in the high school game. And I'll always bring it back to it. For me, it was always about not the wins and losses, but preparing my kids for that freshman year, that sophomore year in college, so they don't come back home, so they don't drop out of school, so they can be successful on the field, on the court, in the classroom. And that's just my opinion. But like I said, for the admin position, I've had nothing but great things to say. And I say this, but I'm in Olathe School District. And I think they view minorities totally different than Shawnee Mission, than Blue Valley, than a lot of the districts that I've been in, especially Missouri. I've applied a few times in Missouri school districts and haven't even got a look. I feel like coaching-wise, they feel we're better suited coaching at inner-city schools. I think they feel we're better suited coaching teams that are predominantly black. I was told recently that I don't qualify. I didn't pass the board's qualifications to be a head coach at the school. And I said, well, what was the criteria? What did you grade me on? Because the applicants that applied, I was more successful than them. Winning, education, overall, just everything. So when you say you don't qualify for something, what are you really saying?
So basically what that's saying is you don't fit, you don't look like they want you to look, basically.
That's it. I'm 2 tones too dark.
Right. That's the way that's the issue that we have to address and we have to try to get rid of, especially with everything that's going on in the world. We shouldn't have to be different and do anything different than the other candidate to get the job. It should be based on
right.
ability and who you are. Coach King, what you got on that, man?
Now, I agree with you guys. It should be based on what you can do, But we already know until we get enough of us up in those high-power positions, we're going to have to play the game within the game. Like I said, you're going to have to be better than they are. You're going to have to be sharper than they are. You're going to have to be able to shake hands and be nice to parents and people like that. That's the reason why we have to walk around on these eggshells, because we're on an eggshell. You know what I mean? We hate that to walk around like that, but it's the honest to God truth. So, you have to carry yourself different in the big world, corporate world, whatever. Even just going to Sam's Club. You're a black man in America. You have to be prepared for something that may happen to you that other ones don't have to think about. So that's just the way you have to carry yourself. And until we get enough people in high power positions, like I said, ADs, administrations, whatever, on any level, that's what we have to do. We just have to watch our back. We have to watch our back until we get comfortable.
Let me kind of chime in and ask a question, Coach King, because I've actually worked with Coach King for some years, and I respect heavily what he's done. When you say we have to say it how you said it again.
Said we have to be able to be better than they are. We have to be able to shake hands with them. We can fit in.
So here, when
fit in though is what we need to get at, Coach. That's what we need to address.
When I graduated from high school and I started going to college, I was told that piece of paper changes everything, right? So in my mind, as I go through this process of building upon my education and submitting these certifications and degrees and things like that, I always ask myself, at what point is this enough? I have a master's in education. I have an MBA. I have a building certification. That's damn near 3 masters. So at what point am I not fitting? Like, am I not fitting in?
None.
Like,
There's never going to be a point where you can feel comfortable. You see what I mean?
That's a challenge. That's a challenge.
As black men, there's never going to be a point where we can feel comfortable. I don't see it. You know what I mean? We're always going to have to be better and on your game. I'm like, I have my master's degree.
But here's the thing with that, though, Coach. We're in the world of sports.
And I don't mean at the time. I mean,
Potts, you got to hit that mute with the gym, bro.
Gotcha.
Can you hear me?
So, hey,
I don't mean
Coach, I agree with you. But what we need to address in the new wave is why is that the case, right? Like, why do we not just get the opportunity based off of who we are, what we've done? We've all been some of the best players. So those guys haven't even done so. So we need to not stand for that and make sure that we are heard in ways that we can make change on that.
Right, because Coach, it's a white man's world. Everywhere we go, it's a white man's world. So we're going to have to act a certain way and be a certain way, be educated a certain way just to get our foot in the door. And when your foot's in the door, you already know 90%, at least me, 90% of the people I work with are white people. You see what I'm saying? I'm the first black head coach in my school's history here in Topeka. Big Topeka High. Never had a black coach. But since I was successful, my freshman coach, who was black, got hired this year, about a month ago, to be the head football coach. So now we have 2 of us at Topeka High that are the black head coaches. You see what I'm saying? But we still I can't walk around Topeka High like my shit don't stink. I can't walk around parents. The white man's still looking, no matter what. No matter what, they're still looking, and we have to just know that they're going to be watching, and you got to be on your game. Because, like I said, Coach Potts, that education doesn't matter. That degree doesn't matter. We all have our degrees. That doesn't matter. That gets your foot maybe looked at, but that's about it. To be honest with you, I think it comes down to move up. It's always like you say, it's not what you know, but who you know. It's like it's who you know that's going to give you a chance to get where you want to be. You know what I mean? But it still boils down to God. If God before you, can't nobody be against you. You pray your footsteps are ordered and do your thing.
Jacob, what you got on that, my man?
I mean, I'm with them. I'm with Coach King. I mean, honestly, it's hard to see it any other way. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. And that's as simple as that. I've always said this. Anybody that's ever done me wrong has had their day. And at the end of the day, God's got my back. And as long as I keep my focus on the kids and my purpose that God's given me in this life, which is to influence the kids, He will continue to open up the doors. Now, the fact of human beings and the people that we have to walk around and stuff like that, it's just is what it is. Until we find, unless we want to leave the region, because it's a regional problem more than anything, unless you want to go to Atlanta, unless you want to go to California, unless you want to go to these bigger markets that have more diversity, you're going to continue to see this. And it's going to be fewer opportunities. You got to be somewhere more progressive, which is why I'm thankful for Chase coming to Kansas City, a New York-owned company. Just kind of like, until what Coach Frankie said, until we have more people in administrative positions that reflect us, the opportunity is going to be far and few between. But when you get the opportunity, you have to make sure you're on point because they're coming from every angle. And they're just waiting for you to slip up. And I didn't say this earlier, the coach that they brought back to be the girls' coach had both his kids out of wedlock, but he's married today, so is there a difference? The only difference is I pissed off the right one, but at the same time, how I view it is if these types of things are happening to me, I must be doing something right, not that you want bad things to happen to you, but you must be, you must be going down the right path when you're getting these types of results for doing the right things.
I'd like to interject some things off the bat. First of all, I want to thank all of you gentlemen for appearing. The second thing is that's the purpose of this Zoom. The City of Fountain Coaches Association, when you don't have a coaches association that's representing your views and that it has some power, and the power comes from being able to have a following in the overall sports community, to bring up these type issues that where a coach cannot be singled out as a trouble, because that's what they do. They separate you like cattle. And well, this coach is a troublemaker because he's saying this, and all you're doing is speaking the truth. So the bottom line is that if we work together, it's like when John Thompson and Cheney and them put together the Black Coaches Association for the college coaches. And that's what we're trying to attempt to do with the City of Fountain Coaches Association, is link our college coaches, our high school coaches, and our biddy coaches that are African descent, where we can speak with one voice. But what I would say to all the coaches involved, it's only as big as your commitment. You have to have the commitment to say, I want to work with a group that is going to represent my values, my community, and speak with one voice. And that one voice is your association. And I think that through Cascade Sports and Cascade Media Group, those goals can be achieved with a solid strategic plan that Coach Glasgow is developing with coaches of your ilk. The last thing I will say, I forgot which coach was talking about the urban core school systems, and one of the major things that has hindered African-American coaches, because they want you to be able to teach so that they can really have a stranglehold on your economic situation. And that's going to keep you in line. When that's how you bring home the bread to pay your bills, there's only so much you're going to say as a coach, because you're afraid you're going to step over that line and touch that third rail. And now what you're trying to do the right thing by your student athletes has interfered with your personal economics. And so through the City of Fountain Coaches Association, we can talk directly to administration. We can talk directly to parents. We can talk directly to colleges that the ultimate goal is to get our kids education, a higher education. And so I would encourage you to work with Coach Glasgow in forming this group that can be the game changer, as they say. And Cascade Sports has some sayings. We go hard in the paint. And so I'd like to see all of you. We've got a brand new website being developed. Join the association and get a chance to meet some of the coaches. And at the next level, the college level, because I know Coach King, for one, he likes coaching high school, but he wants to go to the next level. We've talked about that for 6 years, Coach. And so that's not going to happen by osmosis. The only way that's going to happen if we build the relationships and we work together, where we have a pool of coaches on 3 different levels that can take the next step up and pull you up. Thanks for you listening to what Mr. Nelson had to say. I'm going back on mute.
I mean, I think that we got to attack a lot of these issues, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I work in an athletic director role, and like, for the difference between where I'm at and where the school system, the actual school, is a better school academically and across the board than every other school in the metro area. So, we have to, when we say we need more administrators, we need more of this, we need more of that, at the end of the day, there has to be a stopping point for when you go into a job application and it's for sports, that these things don't hinder us from getting the jobs that we're supposed to be getting. At some point, that has to stop. You can't go to a suburban school and just do an interview and your resume doesn't speak for itself, and you have to be different than everybody else. To me, that's not okay, right? And we have to stop that from happening by being outspoken about it and sharing our experiences and saying, hey, this is not right. Like, there's no reason why I shouldn't have got an interview for this job. There's no reason I shouldn't have been considered for hire if we matching resumes up. My resume says this person's resume says this. Like Coach Potts said, you're talking about a school board who probably no athletes on the school board at all say what qualifications. Why is that not an issue for us to say this qualifications? Dude, I got 3 degrees. I've been coaching for 15, 20 years. I put this kid in college. I got a whole resume. I'm a part of a network. What more expectations do you want from us that you're not willing to want from everyone else? Because if we do look at other regions, the St. Louis region, their whole Catholic league, every coach in that Catholic league with Chaminade and CBC and all these, everybody's African American, right? And this is not to say that white coaches can't coach, because that's not the topic. I don't want anybody to take it like that. But at the end of the day, 3 hours up the highway is completely different than what it is there. So we have to start implementing what's being done in those areas, in our own area, so that we get the opportunities that we deserve. Because to me, I don't want to hear that, I got to walk a certain way or talk a certain way or act a certain way just to coach basketball and be it. We all know everybody on this call can coach basketball. That's a proven fact. And none of us are felons. None of us are doing anything illegal out here. None of us are making a spectacle of ourselves. You can't look at our background. We all do background checks, or none of us will be able to be high school coaches, right? So that should be enough. So we got to start talking about, when is it going to be enough for us to be put in position to where a coach that just been somewhere 1 year and hasn't been that successful can apply somewhere else and get a job. And I was in the same high school setting, and I went to a championship or won a league 2 or 3 years in a row, but that person still gets a job over me. Obviously, you don't want to make everything a race issue, but race issue has a lot to do with it, and we got to attack that issue. Otherwise, we all going to be sitting here mad and angry about every time we don't get a job, right? Potts, I know you feel me on this
one. I definitely agree. I told you about it. The interview I just had, they didn't give me the head coaching job. I had the audacity to ask me to come back and apply for the AD job as soon as they posted. Why? Because the building principal loved me and thought I had amazing leadership. So I'm good enough to lead your building, but I'm not good enough to lead your boys basketball team. It doesn't make sense. It makes no sense. So no, I totally agree. And Coach King, I wasn't saying you got to be better. In my opinion, when you compare my resume and say he's got this many degrees, he's certified in these 2 things, that resume itself is better
than whoever you match it up to that I'm applying against, and even maybe your former coach, you know, whether he be white, Mexican, or black. But the point of it is, and it's like Coach Glasgow saying, we're just getting overlooked because he knows this superintendent or he knows this AD, so we're not going to give this guy an interview because he's not qualified. You know, like, well, if your qualifications are winning, you know, how they carry themselves on and off the court, the kids they coach, well, then I got to be qualified. In any room I step in, I have to be qualified.
Which is what sports is based off of. Coach Frankie, go ahead, man.
Can I say something real quick, fellas?
Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead,
I
Coach.
was talking to Gary Hall, who coaches with me. He's my JV coach. He's about 70-something years old from Wyandotte County. He coached JV at Lawrence Free State, all that. Just today, we were talking sort of about this same thing, and he said, Coach, and this is for you, Potts. He said King in Topeka and Lawrence and Olathe, Blue Valley, all them, their biggest thing is they don't want a black man telling their kids what to do. He sure did. He told me that today. We talked about that this summer, but we were certainly talking about it in the office today.
But Coach, you got to think about it. If they go play A, they're playing with all of these guys anyway, though.
I'm in line, you know what I mean? Walk around the halls, go to class. You cool to do that, but you're not cool to tell me my son ain't better than this boy. My son can't do this over this boy. And that's what he said. It's here like that. It's here in Topeka like that. It's here in Lawrence like that. It's in Kansas City like that. Most of these white men don't want a black man telling their boys what to do. That's why they don't hire us as them coaches like that. They know you better, but you're not going to tell their son what he can and can't do.
It's called white supremacy. That's what it's called. But economics dictates that. And the City of Fountain Coaches Association, as I said earlier, we are committed to working with HBCUs. If you go to our Facebook page, Cascade Sports, or our website, I just put some things up about HBCUs, and I stated a very long statement that we have to direct our high school athletes to HBCUs. I'm 68. I grew up when Grambling was king, where Southern was king, where Johnson C. Smith, where Earl Monroe, at Clyde Frazier, and all of your NBA black players were coming out of HBCU colleges. I didn't know until Coach Glasgow last Friday, we had the District of Columbia's head coach on. I forgot what Mark's last name was. And we got to talking about, what if LeBron James's son decided to go to a HBCU? Do you know what type of money that brings into a HBCU? 300, 400 million. Because the shoe companies are coming, the ESPNs are coming, the everybody is coming. And do you know what that would do to the budgets? And just as of last week, a couple of top players in the country, high school players, say they're looking at HBCUs. As when Coach Glasgow first came on, he talked about this, that you have the talent. We have the talent. LeBron James said, hey, you can't tell me who manages me. This is my partner. He's going to manage me. He's going to be my agent because I'm the product. Until our kids come through systems that recognize that they are the products, where the other coach that was on said that the donor's son complained, where the administration say, hey, I don't care nothing about you because these other black athletes, they're saying, if this coach is not there, I'm not playing, I'm transferring. We've got to understand what our worth is and develop a strategic plan that can be implemented that will put us in that power position. End of story.
Coach Frankie, what you got, my man? You've been quiet.
I've just been listening, soaking it up, everything. To what Mr. Nelson is talking about, I think is definitely key to be affiliated and a part with an association, to have other like-minded individuals to be on the same goal. To rewind it back to what we were talking about, having individuals in certain positions, one thing that I think that we also lack education and knowledge on is the right individual to vote for. Not only do we have to possibly vote for individuals to be on school boards, but we also need to figure out who we need to vote for on state levels on the education board. We need to be able, in order to implement this change, we need to be able to get in with DESE or whoever the Kansas educational system is. It's got to go even higher than our local school districts. Definitely. To tie into what you guys were talking about with the HBCUs and different individuals, players going to that, I think that would be a great idea. We are the product, whether that be in football, whether that be in the NBA, maybe excluding the NHL. If we can't get the backing from our owners, I don't see what the problem is in developing your own league. Be the same scenario as in education, whether the NCAA or the HBCUs, what school you want to go to. Start putting them on the burner as far as seeing who they want to stand for or who they want to fight for. And that's going to be the change that's going to be dictated for the higher up athletes, such as the LeBrons and all that other top tier of driving that movement. Until we can get the same fair shake, until we can get the coaches in the NBA or the ownership in the NBA, coaches.
The bottom line is this affects us. This affects coaching wise. It affects us at every single level. So if you know, it affects us at every single level, from our high school level all the way up to the Division I, then the college level, all the way up to the professional level. We all see who's coaching the most. We all see where the lack thereof is the most. So eventually, we got to figure out a way to stand up to that and make sure that at every level, we're getting the same opportunities. And right now, with everything that's going on in the world, if we're not outspoken about that and not saying our experiences, then it's going to go on for another 20, 30 years with that same model. And we don't need to be more than who we are just to be in a coaching role. Like Division I, we saw the other day, Bo Ryan's kid was coaching at a Division II school, right? This guy went 14-13. He had only had 1 year of head coaching experience, and he moves on and gets a job at a Division I program. I think it's Wisconsin, Greensboro, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But the pool of candidates for that application process to apply for that job. So you don't have to do what we have to do. Our hill in the world of sports, we dominate the world of sports. That's all there is to it. We're talking about we're the product. Most of us are the product of we just didn't have that talent to get to pro level. So we chose to go into coaching to be a part of the game still but the impact that we have on these kids in order for them to get to that level is the pro level. Like we're the starter kit to get them to that level. Pitch, your guy doesn't go to Greensboro if you don't coach him and develop him. Coach, all of your kids don't go to Butler if you don't coach and develop them from a young age. We're involved in the grassroots, right? So we have the experience and the talent and the knowledge, but we still don't get the opportunity. So we have to attack getting the opportunity.
Hey, Coach Glasgow, I want to wind this up, but Coach Frankie, I want to let you know this. You probably don't know this. You mentioned the National Hockey League. Did you know that blacks in Nova Scotia started hockey?
That's in Alaska or in Canada, right?
Right.
Yeah. I had heard of that, but I was just talking just for the normalcy of it now. But I do recall a little history.
Hold it.
Yeah.
No, what the point I'm bringing, white supremacy has whitewashed the world, put God in their image and everything in their image. You would never believe if you watch hockey that black people started hockey. No kind of way. And that's what's going on throughout not just sports, throughout business, throughout real estate. It's a string. And the only way we can deal with that is coming together. It's like different coaches have signed off on this, and everybody has something to do. But you got to decide what's important to you. Is you being on these conversations more important than going to the store, than this or that? That's how Mr. Nelson looks at things. What's important to you? If it's not important to you, if you just want to be involved for the handshake, or that's not going to cut the mustard, because these people have think tanks that are thinking about what's going to happen over the next 50 years, 60 years, and they are willing to sacrifice whatever it takes for them to stay in an economic superior position. That other coach said, I lost my job because of donor. Economics trumped no matter what he was doing. Get rid of him or we're not giving you these funds. And until we understand that the king's currency is the only thing that the system that we live under respects, and learn a way to come together to generate that currency to support the programs that we want to see move forward. Coach Glasgow, I think it's time for you to wind this up. Ball is in your court, as I would say.
All right, man, I appreciate everybody for coming on, man. I think this is, it's good to try to initiate these conversations because I see the landscape, man, and I've seen all the work that all of you fellas have put into this thing, man, even coaches that had to sign off. And I think that we're undervalued here in this area. I think that if we don't stick together about it and really make it be outspoken, that we understand it and that we all go through the same things, and that we start bringing it to the forefront of these school boards and the places where, while everything is going on right now and everybody's paying attention, it's a good time to start going to these school boards and these administrators and saying, hey, listen, you guys have black representation on the field and on the court. Rarely do you see any of us head coaching them. So that needs to change. And if our voices aren't heard in the room, then that's a problem that I don't think that we should just bow out on and take. I think that we have to be more militant about it and not accept it as it is. And our generation of coaches has to do something, or the generation of coaches behind us are going to have to deal with the same things that we had to deal with. And, we all know what our impact on the game is. So I'll give everybody a chance to close out and give their closing statements on it, man. And then we'll wrap it up, man. But I appreciate everybody for jumping on and having your opinions and being a part of the call. So Coach King, go ahead, my man.
Yeah, no, I just it's good to see everybody. You know what I mean? You guys take care. Let's keep this going. It sounds good. You need me, let me know. It sounds good. I'm in.
Coach Frankie?
I'm going to touch on the same sentiments. I mean, this is a plus. And keep striking while the skillet is hot. We do have their attention. It just can't end here. So I appreciate you all having me on. And again, let me know if there's anything I can do.
Coach
Yeah,
Potts?
I agree. I think we need to keep the ball rolling. Regardless of what's going on in the world today, we need to find some way to create some type of members only, Kansas City basketball coaches, African American Association that just has these conversations just like they're doing, because not a lot of us are affiliated in their group. So I agree. Coach Glasgow, I appreciate it. Thank you for the invite. You too, Mr. Nelson.
And I'll make sure everybody gets a member, becomes a member of the City of Fountain Coaches Association, which has coaches at all levels, high school, college, professional, it's a mostly black college network, black coaches network. So I believe it's a good start. And everybody's feedback, man. I mean, one thing I notice about what we got going on in the city, man, is it becomes a divide and conquer type of thing. You know what I mean? We don't stick together on this stuff, and everybody got their own thing going on, which is fine. But at the end of the day, we all got the same purpose, that we're trying to do with these kids. We got to make sure we work together on that, man, and build this thing up so that when we do go and we can develop our own all-star pro teams and our own players of the year, our own coaches of the year, things like that, which we're not being considered for based off of all of the success that we have. It's rare that any of us win coach of the year. You can win state and still not win coach of the year. So we're going to keep this thing rolling, man, and we're going to keep these type of ideas going, man, and have one of these calls every so often, man, to touch on topics that are affecting us directly, man. I think this platform is going to be good for us all. And any ideas or anything that anybody has, and please, man, reach out to other brothers that's coaching, and let's build this thing up, man. Let's create a network to where we all can help each other instead of us all being separate. That's what they would prefer in this type of business, is that we all don't work together. Instead of recommending each other, we might recommend somebody else. We need to be recommending each other and putting letters together and say, hey, man, this is the person you need to hire, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, we're going to keep it rolling, man, and I appreciate all y'all fellas, man, and I'll be talking with everybody soon.
The program is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association.